Hi, everybody. Hope you're still doing well. Hopefully that first little lesson on SOHCAHTOA in the beginning of Trig made sense and you did well on that worksheet. I hope you enjoyed the song as well, and I hope it's stuck in your head as it is mine. All right. Before we get kind of into this, what we're going to do now today is we're going to use Trig to solve parts of a triangle for this one. But before we do, I want to talk a little calculator. You are going to need a calculator to do this. You have ones on your phone. You might not find sine, cosine, and tangent at first. Most of the time, if you turn your phone sideways, they pop up because the calculator stretches out and you get the scientific. If not on your computer, you should have a calculator that looks maybe something like this one. You may have to go up, and when you first open it, it might only look like that. Standard mode, you want to change it to scientific. Now, you might not, on this one, in this version, sine, cosine, and tangent does not pop up. You have to see them over here underneath trigonometry. They kind of shorten things. Anyway, if you have a calculator, of course, something like the TI-84, Trig is on there. You can see the sine, cosine, and tangent buttons there. One thing you do have to remember with a calculator, if you have a calculator like this, you have to make sure you're in degree mode, because there are two types of ways of, well, there's more than two actually, there's three or four, but two that we predominantly look at in math classes of ways of measuring angles. One is degrees, which is what we do mostly and what we do in geometry. The other, as you can see here, is radians. So we have to change our calculator to degree mode. And for this one, that's how I would do that. So now all my answers would be correct. Okay. If you have your own TI like 30, it usually is defaulted to degree mode. In fact, most calculators are. Even the computer calculators, you can see it's highlighted right there, degree. So they're highlighted or default for that. The TI-84s for some reason are not. Sine of 38 degrees. What do I mean? How are we typing that in? Well, if I'm going to use this, what would I do? Well, in this calculator, you actually have to hit 38 first. Everyone's a little different, so you're going to have to figure that out. And then you hit sine, and there's your answer, 0.61566. It goes on forever. It's never ending. Most of the time for us, in decimals like this, it's 2 or 3. The answers, when we start solving, is 1. We'll see what I mean by that in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to write down 0.62. Okay, the next one, tangent 12, I'm going to use the other calculator to show you what in this one you're going to type in tangent, and you're going to hit 12, and then you hit enter, and that's how you do it. So it just depends on the calculator. So that's what, 0.21. Okay. Truthfully, we're going to kind of hit things all in one. You'll see what I mean here in a little bit. All right, so in terms of what we're going to be doing, we're going to be solving for a side in this one. Not an angle, but a side. All right, you're going to do just like you did in the previous. You're going to label your sides, your opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. Your reference angle will be the angle that's given to you. Okay, and then you're going to write your equation using the correct trig. Remember the great Chief SOHCAHTOA here to help us out. And then we're going to solve the equation. I'm going to give you some hints here. Basically what's going to happen is you're going to end up with a fraction and a problem, and that is if the x is on top, you're going to multiply the two things to get the answer. If the x is on the bottom, we divide. Basically, it's algebra. I'm just trying to cut to the chase. You know, if I had 10 equals x over 2, the way you would solve that is you multiply both sides by 2, and you get 20 equals x. Okay? If I had something like this, 10 equals 2 over x. If you were going to solve that, okay, what would you do? Well, what you usually learned in algebra is you first multiplied by x. You got 10x equals 2, and then you divided here by 10, okay? And so we would get a decimal then, right? Or 1/5 or 0.2, okay? All right. So what did we do? Well, we took the number and divided by this, okay? And that's what we're gonna cut to the chase. Over here, what did we do? We took the number times 10. Here, we took the number and divided by 10. So that's what I mean. So I'll show you that here in an example when we get through, okay? All right. So first example, first problem. They're all kind of the same setup. Here's my reference angle of 65. So the first thing I want to do is label my triangle. Well, I know this is the hypotenuse. And then the only other thing I have on my triangle is directly across, so that makes that the opposite. I could label this as the adjacent, but I don't really need to in this case because I don't need it. So sometimes I try to avoid that, labeling that part, because now I have to decide. Well, I know SOHCAHTOA, and I know opposite and hypotenuse. So which trig uses opposite and hypotenuse? Well, it's right there, so it's sine. So what am I going to write? Well, I'm going to write sine of 65 degrees equals x, the opposite, over the hypotenuse. Remember, this is opposite over hypotenuse. Okay? So that's why I did that. Now, I need to solve for x. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to multiply both sides by 15. And this is the reason I'm going to talk about this. I want you to do this first. Don't type this in the calculator and get a decimal and round and all that. So here's what we're going to do. So this 15 times sine of 65 is what x is equal. We're going to type that in our calculator just like that. Okay, now on this one, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go 15 and I can just type sine 65 and get my answer of 13. We'll say 13.6. Now on the other calculator, I'm going to have to do something a little bit different. I think, if I remember correctly here, you're going to do 65 sine, right? And you notice it says up here sine is 65. I don't know what the little 0 there is other than it's not being squared or anything. And then I'm going to take times 15. And then that should give me the same answer. If you notice, both screens have the same answer of 13.6. Okay, so again, you're going to have to play with your calculator. If you're having trouble with that, let me know. And I'll try to work you through depending on what calculator you have. All right, so that's what that answer is. Now, a couple things here. Should keep in mind what we remembered before. You know, this has to be the hypotenuse, so that's got to be the biggest side. So this answer should be smaller than that. It is, okay? Things are kind of drawn to scale-ish on these, so things should make sense. All right, let's try a couple more here. Some I'll do together. Some I might ask you to say, pause it. This one here, let's label. So this is my 10. Okay, so this would be my hypotenuse, but what does that make the x? Well, sometimes I find the opposite. Well, this one would be my opposite, but that doesn't help me. There's nothing there, so this is the adjacent. Okay, again, we're dealing with the great chief SOHCAHTOA. And which one is AH? But that one, cosine. So we're going to say cosine of 10 degrees equals, remember, it's adjacent over hypotenuse. And what's my adjacent? Well, that's my x, and my hypotenuse is 9. Since x is on the bottom, x on the top, I'm going to multiply by 9. So this is what I'm typing in my calculator. Okay, again, so if I went to this one, 10. I'm going to hit trig cosine times 9. Answer I should get, we'll round that to 8.9. Okay, so the keys: label your triangle with the information, and then write your equation, and then from there decide, am I going to multiply or divide? All right, let's try another one here. In fact, why don't you pause and try this one yourself? Okay, so let's see how you did. So here's 38. There's my reference angle. So that means this is opposite. That means this would be hypotenuse, but I don't have anything there, so I don't really need to write it. So that means this is adjacent. Biggest mistake, and one like this, a lot of times 12, people think is the hypotenuse. Again, just because I don't have it always written on mine, SOHCAHTOA, which trig has an O and an A? Well, that's the great TOA there. So we're going to say tangent of 38 degrees is remember, tangent is opposite over adjacent. So that's x over 12. And again, the x is on top, so that means I'm going to go 12 tan of 38 is x. So 38 trig tangent times 12. 9.4, we'll say this time. And that seems to make sense too. This definitely x looks like it's smaller than 12, so that answer does make sense. Okay, a few more examples, and then I will kind of do a problem that's on the worksheet for you to look at as well. Okay, so this one now, number 4, again, reference. There, going across, that's my opposite, and this is hypotenuse. I'm not going to write SOHCAHTOA out there. Which one deals with O and H? That's right, sine. So we're going to say sine of 70 equals the opposite. Remember, it's opposite over hypotenuse. So we're going to say the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now, here's where things are different. So the x is on the bottom, right? According to the notes on the first page we started here, if the x is on the bottom, we're going to divide. Now, I wanted you to, I didn't really say it much here, but if we go back, I always put the number I'm multiplying, I put the 12 first. 9, 15, okay? I wanted you to get in the habit of that, because when we get to this one, we're going to take the number and we're going to divide by the trig. Okay, so it's always about the number first, okay? So on this one, let's see if I can do this. I didn't even try this one out, actually. So 16 divided by, and what was that, 70. So we should be able to say 70 and trig, and what was it, sine? And that does work out. And then we got to hit enter, though, because right there, that number right now that's on the screen is only for sine of 70. So I hit enter, and I get 17.02, or we could say 17.0. Okay, let me show you that again. Let's go back there real quick here. And so you would start by typing the number 16 divided by, then the angle measure 70, and then I hit the trig on this one. And remember to hit enter again. Okay, now on the calculator, the other calculator, the ones we used to use in school, it's a lot simpler because you go 16 divided by sine, oops, I forgot, divided by sine of 70. It's a little less button pushes, which you know I'm all about. The less button pushes, the better. Okay? All right, so let's try another one here. Now, this one here, what's happening? I have an x and a y. Oh, no. What that means is I want you to solve both. We're going to do 2 problems. All right, so let's do this here first. So here's my reference. That means this is my opposite, this is hypotenuse, and this is adjacent. Okay, so we can't solve for everything at once. So what we're going to do is we're going to solve for x first. Okay, let's see if I can do this. Draw a shape. I'll try it again. One more time. If I can't do it, then I can't do it. Nope. Oh, there it is. It's not filled in. I'll forget that. All right, I was going to try to hide something for you. Usually if we were in the classroom, I put my hand over it, but that's not going to help, is it, right now? So what we're going to do is this. We are only going to work with the 3 and the x. So I'm only looking at this and this right now. And which trig is that? Well, that's TOA, tangent. So I'm going to say tangent of 47 equals the opposite over the adjacent. So again, what am I going to do on calculator is 3 divided by the tangent of 47. Okay, so if I go to here, so 3 divided by 47. Whoops, I see I screwed that up. Never mind. So what was that again? 3 divided by, and then I'm going to say 47, and then tangent. And then hit enter. So that gives me like 2.8 for x. All right, so technically speaking, I could use the Pythagorean theorem now. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? I could go 2.8 squared plus 3 squared equals y squared. I would suggest not. If you made a mistake here, you're definitely going to make a mistake there. Plus, we need to practice trig. So let's use trig. And in this case, I'm going to change colors so we can see this better. I'm going to only look at, here's my y, and I'm going to use this 3. Now, I could use the answer x, but if I got x wrong, I'm definitely getting y wrong. I could technically get y correct without knowing x. Which trig is that? O and H. Well, that's sine. So sine of 47 degrees is the opposite over the hypotenuse. All right. So then we would divide again. So 3 divided by the sine of 47. Okay. All right, so we got to type that in. We're going to divide. So 3 divided by 47, trig, sine, answer. We do get 4.1. Okay, so that's it. I am assigning a little bit of bookwork. Has a few problems plus the answers. The bookwork is actually the answer book, so you can look at the problem, see if you get the answers. And I'm also assigning a worksheet. Okay, the worksheet, just to show you, looks like this one here. And you know, you're doing the exact same thing we just did there. So we're trying to solve for x. We're only finding one of the parts. That's it. So again, here's my reference angle. This would be opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse, but I'm only worried about those two, right? So which one would that be? Cosine. I'm not going to solve this one totally. 72 is 6 over x. In that case, I would divide and get my answer. Okay? All right. Hope everybody stays safe and is doing well. And, you know, try those out. If you have any questions or you're having problems, you know, let me know and we'll try to walk you through, and hope to see you guys soon. Bye.